The Smarter Money Life podcast is sponsored by Forum Credit Union, a member-owned financial cooperative serving members since 1941. Forum, your trusted financial partner, helping members live their financial dreams every day. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Smarter Money Life podcast. I'm Andy Mattingly.
And I'm Nicole Royal.
You ready to get started with this week?
I am.
Second week of summer for the kids, right?
We are in it, and the weather has been great. They've had a lot of pool days, so.
That's perfect.
Yep.
So what's our topic today, Nicole?
Today we're talking about something that affects all of us, whether we realize it or not. We live in a connected world. Our phones, laptops, apps, and accounts make life easier, but they also give scammers more opportunities to find their way in. And the goal today isn't to scare anyone, it's to help you feel more confident and more in control.
Exactly. And a few smart habits can make a big difference. And to help us go deeper on the how, we're joined by one of the subject matter experts we have here at Forum, Ben Rader, who works to keep the credit union secure all the time. Ben, welcome to the podcast.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Ben, you spend your days right in the middle of fraud prevention and security. Before we get into specifics, are people overreacting to fraud risk or not taking them seriously enough?
I think it's a lot of both, actually. And it's actually pretty reasonable when you get down to why. So on one side, we have the overreaction, right? So an example of that is the paranoid people you meet. They'll say, well, I use a VPN and I do this and I do that. There's a lot of marketing with fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so they'll peddle all these solutions. And a lot of the times they don't really, this is the Smarter Money Life podcast, right? They don't really give you the bang for your buck, so to speak. And on the other side of it, there is a underreaction too, because people say, well, all these solutions, I do not have time to implement them. And on the ladder or the hierarchy of things that I prioritize in my day, it definitely does not fall at the top, so I don't feel like I have time to actually meet the standards that all these paranoid people are saying, right? And a lot of the times, they aren't even doing the fundamentals either, and I really do think there are some fundamentals you can start to build habits with that are very cost-effective in terms of how much time you have to put towards it and the benefits you actually get out of it. There is no one-size-fits-all approach or solution, but like in football, for example, so if we look at security, the most fundamental definition of security, I would say, is accounting for adversaries. Super simple. How do you account for the bad guys? And so if you look at everything you do day to day, look at it like a game.
That makes a lot of sense. Let's start with the basics. Passwords, logins, all of that. What do you kind of see as some of the biggest mistakes that people are making in that area?
A way I like to break things down, I love modeling things. So the reason I love security is I see this big problem, right? Operating in adversarial environments. How do you account for that? And for most people on the personal side of things, it's a little different on the corporate side, surely. When you're trying to defend a company, it's really difficult. But in our personal lives, I think you can break it into two components. So anything you do, there's always a person or an entity you have to trust. So I break it down into the who and the intent. And so a way to look at that is you're operating with someone. You want to prove their identity, and you also want to know their intent. And you want to make sure how they're communicating their intent. They're saying, well, this is why I'm doing it. Well, how are you sure that that is their intent? And how are you also sure that they're going to follow through with it? And I know that's a bit abstract, but example, so identity-wise, most companies, they don't want people to do fraud on their systems, so they have to prove that the person logging in to use the system or the service is who they say they are. These days, we do that mostly with passwords. So passwords have been around since the 70s. They're easy because they're super portable. You just have to remember them. But people steal passwords. And when they were made in the 70s, one common thing is that the passwords, how you prove your identity to people or how they prove their identity to you, that is going to be a common factor, is identity. And you prove that mostly with passwords these days. And the other thing, intent, where that comes in is you can think social engineering, think phishing, think people calling you up and trying to scam you, right? Intent is really hard to gauge. And so you can't just go trusting people sending you texts, sending you emails. You have to try to gauge their intent and prove their identity constantly. So that's like the common factors. I could get into solutions. Obviously, a password manager. I'm going to keep saying this over and over again. Password management. Since we prove our identities with passwords these days, password management is a huge one.
I want to take you back to passwords because that is a common way that people get into their online banking or their insurance app or whatever it is. What are common mistakes people make with their passwords?
They're easily guessable, and that's like the broader way to say it. But for example, there are websites you can go to. You can type in maybe the password you use. And I know that sounds dicey. Why are you putting your password into something online then? Because what if it's a bad guy? Yeah, that's true. But there are guessable passwords. There's ways to brute force passwords. So people choose bad passwords. That's a problem because they want something they can remember. And they already have hundreds of accounts. So that's mainly why I say use a password manager is because people have to use passwords all over the place unless they have a place where they're managing those passwords without exposing them to services that they use. They're going to lose track of things. It's impossible because you're limited by your memory. There's
Sure.
no way you can keep up with it.
One of the things to kind of look at this in a different way, some people feel like that security has to be complicated to be effective, but sometimes it's just adding layers, right? Like two-factor authentication. And maybe you can explain to people why that's important. Well, first, what it is, but then why that's important to go along with passwords.
Oh, yeah. So that would be, so the big three would definitely be they reuse passwords. They don't have two-step verification or multi-factor authentication, as you say. Same thing on the important stuff. And those are two pretty simple things to fix. Password manager. And then for two-step verification, you don't need to set it up on everything. Just start with the important stuff. And even better, so most people, they'll say, okay, you want me to turn my life upside down right now because I don't even know all the accounts I have. Where do I even begin? Do I need to pour through the thousands of emails I get in my inbox that I already can't keep up with to figure out all the websites that I've signed up on? And no, you don't necessarily have to. One good resource, there's a website, it's called Have I Been Pwned? That is PWNED. So Have I Been Pwned? You can type in your email there and it will show you all the websites that there are known breaches to have occurred with your credentials or your email address. They might not necessarily know what your password is because there's some cryptographic magic going on there. It's called hashing if you want to learn more about that. But you can type in your email into a website like that, and you can start by prioritizing those websites. And because you reuse your password, you're not going to cover everything. I would just start with the important ones and start building those habits. Like I've been using a password manager now for 6 years, and I've gotten to the point now where I have 700 logins. And that only took 6 years. That's like 100 logins per year. And if you use a password manager too, one of the things that it took some years to develop now, but there's this nice technology called passkeys, and they are way better than passwords. The issue is, let's say you want to use a passkey on your banking website or Google or whatever it is, they have to implement that. But I would still say if you're using a password manager, it's still just as secure. So for the most part, granted, passkeys can't really be social engineered, so someone couldn't steal it from you as easily. But if you're using a password manager, it's really easy to start using passkeys. You don't even have to think about it. Also, Google and Apple are starting to enable passkeys more consistently through like your iCloud account or your Google account, which is really awesome. If you're using that and you haven't started using a password manager, it's better than nothing. I'm not going to say you have to do this, that, and that. Just start doing something, build a habit, it'll work over time. It's all about consistency.
Let's talk devices. Phones, tablets, laptops, we use them all day, every day. Is this an area we need to pay more attention to from a security standpoint?
Get used to something, really learn it, press all the buttons, learn the settings. I would say if you spend just 20 minutes auditing like your iPhone or your Android settings, you'll get a lot done just in 20 minutes. Changing up some of your privacy and security settings. A lot can be done just by doing that and going through the settings on your phone, doing an audit of that. And then the other thing would be there are some, we live in a certain time and place right now, so there are attacks to account for. I can list some out here. So a good thing to do for your devices would be to lock down the ability to change your SIM card on your phone. That's a huge one. Because right now, how you prove that you own a number is by your SIM card, right? And that's a form, again, it goes back to identity, proving your identity. So making sure that, like going to T-Mobile or whoever it is and turning on all the settings to make sure it's really hard to change your phone number, that's a great one to do. Another one is Android and iPhone. They're both coming out with a lot of settings on like call screening. So that would be a great one to turn on. I've seen a lot of people get some value out of that pretty quick right now. Like my wife, for instance, she doesn't pick up the phone unless it's a named number in her contacts, and it does a scam call screening. And it'll say, the AI will ask it, hey, what are you calling about? And they'll say, well, I'm calling about this. And she'll read it live, and she'll be like, okay, I'll pick it up. And that's a good thing to use. Turn that on. Don't plug in stuff into your phone or your computer. That's a big one. Update your computer. Yeah, so there are some random stuff like that, but for the most part, it's going to be learning your device because all devices are different.
I want to flip a little bit just because I know that you see this sometimes here at Forum. Have you heard about it? A lot of scams, they do start online with that email or text that feels, urgency. What would you share with our listeners about that and how they can react to those things or what they might see?
Yeah, urgency. The first form of those types of scams, so like the act now, do this, it's actually from the 1800s. There's some videos about this online, but it was the Spanish prisoner scam back from the 1800s. So they would send you a thing in the mail, and it's like, I need help getting out. I'm a monarch, but I'm going under a different alias. Please, if you give me a little bit of money, I'll get out of jail. I'll get you my treasure, and I'll give you, you'll be rich. Right. It's been around hundreds of years now. So it's always a useful tactic for them to use. The reason being that time is your most important resource. So the second they say, this is urgent, I need you to act on this now, what you're thinking is, okay, time has become scarce for me now because I have to do this right now. And time is what you need to think, to reason. So that's why it's always a common factor in scams and fraud. So definitely something to always watch out for. And it does go back to, again, gauging their intent and trying to prove their identity. If there is a case of, okay, this could be legitimate, but if someone comes straight to you through means like email or text, you need to call them back through a trusted channel. If it's a website, if it's your bank calling you, you're going to go straight back to the bank. You're not going to just reply to that email. So that's a good thing. Always go back to a trusted channel.
When I was a college student, I loved to do my homework sitting at a coffee shop. It's where I did my best thinking. But talk to me about the Wi-Fi at coffee shops. Is it safe? Should people use it?
In high school, I think it was way more of an issue. When I went through college, we learned about wireless security, and it was kind of changing when I was in college. So things have improved since I was in high school. It used to be really bad. If you're on the guest Wi-Fi and you go to your banking website, they could pick up like your login details and your password that way. These days, it's not as common to do that. Number one, because the attacker has to be there in person, so that's just a resource they have to use, right? They had to drive over there. Why don't they just sit at their computer and do it that way? I would say it's a lot more uncommon these days, but if you are someone who would be targeted, if you're a CIA agent, yeah, definitely don't do that. Don't go on the guest Wi-Fi. Another thing that happens that is a problem still with Wi-Fi, let's say you're at the Starbucks, just try to use a hotspot if you've got it. That's a good option. There's also some settings. This isn't as easy, but you go into your browser and you set up DNS over HTTPS. So there are settings that make it much more difficult for someone to steal stuff if you're on guest Wi-Fi, an untrusted network, essentially. The last one is auto join. So there is an auto join, like auto join this Wi-Fi setting on your phone. That could technically also be a problem. But again, I don't think it's as prevalent these days. So I wouldn't worry about it too much usually unless you're logging into a very sensitive website for the most part.
Well, we've talked about kind of public Wi-Fi, but another thing that I feel like that people don't think a lot about is they actually have a lot more connected devices in their house than they think. If you have Ring cameras, washers and dryers and refrigerators, I mean, almost everything now can be connected through Wi-Fi, and you can manage from your phone all kinds of stuff. So what should be people like? Is there any concerns there?
Yes. So if you have more devices on your home network, you set up more stuff. That's just more ways for an attacker to potentially have a front door into hacking your home network, essentially. So there is that risk. I wouldn't just start throwing a bunch of stuff on your home network unless you've done a little bit of your research on what that is. The other risk there is also that, for instance, your home router, a lot of people buy home routers. There's cheap stuff out there. It could be other stuff too. It could be your smart fridge or your smart whatever, right? Some of these, and this has been proven time and time again, come loaded with like Chinese spyware, for instance, like espionage malware. So they're watching your activity. They're trying to gather as much data as possible. And recently, we've been waiting years for this, but there is something called the Cyber Trust Mark from the Federal Communications Commission. So FCC, they put out this thing called the Cyber Trust Mark, and that's actually a sort of nutrition label for how trustworthy this device is that you're buying. That's actually a new thing that you can have at your disposal to use when you're going to like buy these new technologies that you're putting on your home network. That's actually a good resource to start with nowadays. Those are the two big risks. More devices, it's going to be more attack surface. So don't put it on your network if you don't know what you're doing, is what I would say.
Social media is another piece that we don't always think about, but that we're all using. Why should we be careful about what we share out on Facebook or Instagram?
Well, everything on social media, it can be fuel for a scam. This happened to me recently too. My grandpa, he apparently called me. I didn't know because I just didn't pick up the phone at the time. Maybe it was when I was having my baby. Who knows? But when it did happen, apparently I called him and I was injured. I was in a hospital. I'd broken my leg or something in a car crash and nobody else was picking up their phone, right? And it had my voice apparently too. So maybe they got my voice from social media. I don't know how that's possible either because if you do have social media, you want to try to set your pages to be private, so it has to be friends only that can view stuff so that they can't do something like that. That can happen as well. They might sound like you. They might know that you live in a certain place as well because of your social media, right? All of that information just came off your social media. When I was in grad school too, I tried to do this project where I would try to crack people's passwords using social media, and I figured out a lot of people do use something tied to their social media. It could be like their cat's name, or I had this system where it would take the place that they lived and it would try to get things like the high school mascot name, certain things like that. And I did find there was some success with that, right? So people use stuff like that you could find on social media in places like passwords, and it can be used as fuel for these scams. So that's definitely something to always look into. Try to lock down who can see your social media pages, because we all want to interact with our friends and family.
Ben, we really appreciate you joining us. Well, it was great having Ben join us, but we want to talk just a little bit about offline too. Like, shredding documents, and keeping important paperwork secure. Because monitoring your money is also another habit we want to talk about because it's really important as well.
And for good reason. Setting up transaction alerts, reviewing statements regularly, acting quickly when something looks off can stop fraud from getting worse.
You know, and this is one other thing is, especially when you're dealing with your parents, if you do all of these things and talk about it, you can really help them set up these alerts and the frauds and stuff. But one thing that, I've talked with parents and in-laws are credit freezes.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that they're very beneficial. Dave and I both have all three of our bureaus frozen. The setup of it can be a little bit tedious. You got to log into each website individually. Each website has their own login credentials. Some use a PIN number, some use a password, username. But once you do it, you feel just an extra level of security. And if you need to apply for something like a credit card, or you're going to buy a car or refinance your mortgage, unfreezing it is simple to do.
And now you can unfreeze it for a specific entity, or you can unfreeze it for a certain period of time and not have to remember to go and turn it back on. I just recently did that and I was like, wow, this is way better than it used to be.
Exactly. So. Yep. I know I'm going to shop for a car for the next few days, so you just unfreeze it for 3 days and give yourself a window. Yeah, it's great. Yep, I highly recommend it. Let's close with this. If someone has a gut feeling that isn't right, what's the first move you suggest, Andy?
I think the first move is always to talk to someone else. And especially when you're talking about yourself, your kids, your in-laws, maybe you have this family rule to say, hey, before I do anything, I'm going to ask someone, and it's that trust but verify type of thing. But don't verify with the person who's talking to you or making the request. Either call your institution separately or talk to someone in your family and say, as Ben pointed out, his grandfather reaching out to him and saying, I don't think this is you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big thing, is making sure that if you think something's not right, don't be in a hurry, ask a question, and maybe you just have the family motto of no money moves without me talking to someone else to verify that it should move.
Yeah, I think that's great. Awareness is really the theme here.
It's not about being paranoid. We just want people to be prepared, and hopefully we've given you a lot of things to think about today, but maybe just remember just little things all along and be aware.
Yep, I think that's great. Thanks for joining us today. If you want more tips or resources, visit forumcu.com.
And don't forget to tune in next time for more ways to make your money work smarter for you.
Thank you for joining us today. Our hope is that we can help you live your best financial life. For more insights, be sure to subscribe to the Smarter Money Life YouTube channel and also catch the Smarter Money Minute segment every Thursday on Fox 59's Indy Now Lifestyle Show. Remember, reaching your financial dreams is a journey, and every step you take brings you closer to making your dreams a reality.